What is up, Flutter devs? Today we are going to implement or port the conversion subcategory within processing over to Flutter Processing. Let's take a look. Here I have the conversion header highlighted, and you'll see under that header, binary, boolean, byte, character, float, hex, int, string, unbinary, unhex. These are various forms of conversion. Some of them might make sense in our case, some of them might not, but let's see if we can convert them. Or port them, I should say. As I've been doing in previous videos, our sketch object is now being composed of mixins that contain their isolated behaviors or properties. Let's continue that trend today. The primary category we're dealing with is called data. And then I said that this subcategory was conversion or conversions. I don't know, what was it? Conversion singular. Okay. And our class will be sketch conversion. And we need to implement that, but also let's add that here, sketch conversion as a mixin. Let's see, can I put a comma there? It'd be nice if these would all place themselves on separate lines. Anyways, what we want to implement here are these various methods. I think we'll start from the bottom where it's probably more obvious what we're supposed to do. Unhex returns an integer as determined by a hex string, which is going to be int, maybe it's just parse. Let's see what I guess these might be conflicting with our IDE parsing here. So int parse the hex string radix essentially means base, and it's base 16 that unhexes a hex string using the processing terminology. Unbinary is similar, except it's for binary, where we will take in a binary string and we will say int parse binary radix 2, base 2 for binary. Those are the obvious ones. Some of these may not apply to us. We might throw unimplemented errors, but let's go see what these APIs have to say. str. So we did unbinary, we did unhex. Actually, is binary the opposite of that? Okay, so binary is kind of the opposite of unbinary, and so is hex. There's going to be some issues here with implementing these, but let's give it a try. So hex should return a string, which is a hex string based on some value. Now, the reason I say dynamic is because, as with many other processing behaviors, in processing, this method tries to interpret any given value you might throw at it. It says converts an int, byte, character, color to a string. Now, int and byte, those are nearly interchangeable. They're both integers, just different sizes. Character is actually also an integer in most languages, although Dart does not have a dedicated character type, so that doesn't really apply to us. But then also color is thrown in here, just the entire color object. So we're going to check the type. I don't think Dart has byte as a type. No, so a byte in Dart I think still is represented as an integer, if I'm remembering correctly. So really what we want to say here is if value is int, then return int, return value to radix string 16 as the base. Else, if value is color, and we're going to go with Flutter's definition, then we're going to return value. Let's see. I should be able to get this. Should be able to get the color as an integer. At least you can create one from an integer. I'm surprised that there's not a toInt. Oh, there it is. So value.value, and then we're going to say toRadix string 16. And now whether you pass in a color or an integer, and that integer could be the size of a byte or it could be larger, we're going to give you the base 16 representation. But if it's anything else, we're going to throw, I'm not sure what kind of exception makes sense here. Let's see, maybe format exception. Of the exceptions available to us here, it could also be an IO exception. I guess it depends on the definition of, how it's intended to be used. Let's see what format exception is defined as. But what does it mean? Exception thrown when a string or some other data does not have an expected format. It's not really what we're dealing with here. Let's see if would it make sense to go with the more generic IO exception? Oh, that's abstract, so we can't even instantiate that. I'm going to go with a format exception for now. Can't convert a value of type, runtime type, to a hex string. All right, now let's repeat this for binary. We just need to change the base to 2, and it will change the error condition to binary string. Okay, so I think we got those out of the way. So I'll get rid of binary, and I'll get rid of hex. Then let's see what else we have here. So Boolean converts an int or string to its Boolean representation. For an int, any non-zero value, positive or negative, is true. For a string, the value true evaluates to true, while any other value is false. Okay. If value is int, then return int equals 0. Returns value equals 0. Is that what it said here? Any non-zero value evaluates to true. Okay, so the opposite, not equal to 0. Else, if value is string, then return value equals the string true. It doesn't mention whether capital letters work, so we're going to assume it literally means that. Else, we're going to throw another format exception. Can't convert a value of type value to a Boolean. All right, done with that one. Byte converts any value of a primitive data type to its byte representation. A byte can only be whole numbers between -128 and 127, so when a value outside of this range is converted, it wraps around to the corresponding byte. I think for this one, I'm just going to throw an unimplemented error. I'm not sure what value this has, and I'm not sure how to convert a number of those types. Char converts any value of primitive data types to its numeric character representation. So now here again, I mean, a Boolean doesn't have a character representation, at least not naturally, nor does a double or a float. Every character has a character code. So what we can do is we can say string will take an int, which is the character code, and we can return string.fromCharacterCode. We can do that. Hopefully that's good enough. Again, Dart does not have a type called character. So if you're dealing with one character or many characters, it's a string. Float converts an int or string to its floating point representation. we're going to actually return a double. We'll call it float for processing developers, but Dart does not have floats. If value is int, return value to double. Else, if value is string, return double parse value. Else, we're going to throw an exception. To a floating point number. All right, and then int, let's see what we've got for int. Converts any value of a primitive type or string to its integer representation. I don't know. We can turn an int into a Boolean given the rule we saw previously, but in reverse, we don't know, like we know that false should return 0, but true, I guess we could return 1. Byte we don't have as a type. Character we don't have as a type. Color we can deal with. And then I don't know what you do with a float. Do you just truncate it? Is that what it means to turn a float into an int? I guess we can do our best here. If value is int, return value. Let's see. Probably calling that int is not great. Let's call it toInt. All right, else if value is double, return value dot floor. Else if value is, what else do we have here? We have string, I guess we said Boolean, right? If it's a Boolean, return value is true, we're going to return 1, otherwise we'll return 0. Else, if it's a string, return int parse value. Else, we're going to throw an exception. And then string, we're just going to return value.toString. And I will say that's an object to say that it's non-null. And in fact, all of these I think should be objects because they can be any type, but they can't, but null is not an appropriate value for any of these. All right, and just like that, I believe that we have implemented all of conversion. So again, we'll keep going down this road. Maybe in the next video, we'll do p-vector. I can't decide whether I want to start refactoring first and then do p-vector or p-vector and then start refactoring. I'll make that decision before the next video, but hopefully you're learning things as we go through this. We're making a lot of progress on cutting through the unimplemented APIs. So I will see you in the next video.